Your contribution is very precious to us. I would like to give the floor. I know I said you differently, but dear Rabbi Yisroel Dovid Weiss, he's with us today from the United States, and we are waiting for you. Thank you very much for being with us.
With the help of the Almighty, I pray to the Almighty to bestow upon me His truth, His wisdom, that I may be worthy of conveying His message, and so, inshallah, sanctify His name and bring peace to the world. Assalamu alaikum, greeting to everybody, and especially to the suffering people in Gaza and all throughout Palestine, and the refugee camps, the children of Palestine. Our message is critical. It is very important always to remember that there would never be a terrible catastrophe, a Nakba, if it would not be that the Satan has somehow what they would call a seed of truth. In other words, evil always has to have a seed of truth, our rabbis tell us, or else the world will not support it. They would not be able to have a standing in the world leadership. So Zionism and its occupation tried to occupy a land, a total nationalist concept, taking over a land from another people. But they didn't do it with their ideology, which was pure nationalism, to take over the land. No, they tried to use a concept that the world would buy, and so they drew in the Bible, the concept of the children of Israel, the people of Israel, that God gave the land 3,000 years ago to the children of Israel. So they took something which is truth, the Bible, they took the Torah, but they falsified it. But they took one seed, one little seed of truth, and they used that to manipulate and create this horror, this catastrophe, this Nakba. And they're building and continuing on in this manner, gaining the support of the world. Unfortunately, we say the support of the world because even though a lot of the world, as we've been hearing from all the distinguished speakers, a lot of the world is not standing in support, but the power at the end of the day, the ones that are controlling, unfortunately, are the ones that are giving him that support, and with a reason, because they're basing it that they have managed to vilify the people of Palestine, they have managed to vilify and dehumanize the people of Palestine, the people of Gaza, and explain that the reason that they oppose the creation of the state of Israel is because they are anti-Semitic. They are against Jewish people. And the world stands in horror when we remember what anti-Semitism is, of how 6 million people were murdered simply because they practiced another religion. The world stands in horror that how the world was silent for 5 and 6 years at that period of time. Where was the world? How could the world stand by and watch so many people? And besides the 6 million Jews, how many other millions were murdered? And the world was silent. And in fact, they make memorials for this throughout the world. Why do they make the memorials? It's not just to remember, but it's to remember that it should not replay itself. It should not happen again. And yet, wonder upon wonder, you have an action that is this murder, this genocide, this killing of people, innocent people, totally innocent people. Nobody could refute a baby who can't speak, who doesn't have the capability yet of even talking. You can't accuse him of being evil. And yet they're murdering and murdering and murdering day after day, and everybody is witnessing this. And the powers of the world that have the powers are supplying this evil entity, the state of Israel, with the arms to carry out this genocide, this murder. So how did they manage to do that? Because they threw in this seed of Judaism, and claiming that we have here a conflict between two people, one religion that does not, countenance does not will the lives of the other religion, of the Jewish people. So it is critical that every time when we are trying to fight this, which we must speak up, it's required of us to speak up, that we clarify constantly that this has nothing to do with the difference of religion. The use of the religion in order to create this Nakba way back in 1948, and before that with the Balfour Declaration, that minute when they decided to do this, that was the beginning, the root of the evil that we have culminated into where we are today. Because Judaism has nothing, does not give any legitimacy or permission for the creation of this occupation. Judaism is a religion of 3,000 years of subservience to the Almighty, that we made a covenant as Jews with the Almighty to keep His Torah, to emulate God, not to kill, not to steal, to do kindness, just as God is compassionate, you must be compassionate. That is what Judaism is. In fact, 2,000 years ago was the destruction of the temple, and we were told clearly, we were commanded by the Almighty that we are forbidden to reinstate, to reestablish any style, any type of a Jewish sovereignty, until the Almighty will make a miraculous change in the world where all humanity will recognize one God, and God will build a temple without any human intervention, and all humanity will gather together and serve God. All the nations will gather up to serve God, not become Jews, but serve God in harmony, and the Almighty will make a temple. This was the Jewish, this is the 101 of Judaism, this is the basics of Judaism that was respected for 3,000 years of the practice of Judaism, and since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago, this was the belief that we are not to establish any, even 1 centimeter of Jewish sovereignty. This was around the world. Every single religious community accepted this and knew this. So when Zionism came, which was a group of heretics, Theodor Herzl, Ben Gurion, Chaim Weizmann, Jabotinsky, all these people were not religious. These were people who had nationalist goals to create a sovereignty. And they simply incorporated, they took this seed of holiness, Judaism, and they incorporated it into their nationalist goal in order to silence any opposition and to gain support from people who are less knowledgeable of the Torah, less knowledgeable of what the Bible says, less knowledgeable of Judaism. And they use this to go around the world and tell people, hey, you want to support the Jews? Let's create a state of Israel. And we're, of course, in Palestine. They wanted to make their state in other areas, in Uganda, in Patagonia, and God willing, we shouldn't have to have a meeting because it'll be after the dismantlement of the state of Israel, so we won't have to be there. But they wanted to go all the way there. Where did they have an issue of making a Jewish state over there? Because their concept of a Jewish state has nothing to do with Judaism. It was a nationalist home that they wanted, and ersatz Judaism, a transformation from this covenant that we made with God, that we died for 3,000 years, into a base nationalism that's void of any responsibility to God, to keeping the Sabbath, keeping kosher. The state of Israel has nothing with kosher, has nothing to do with Sabbath. They have a nationalist home where they proudly announce it's a democracy, you're free to do what you want. So they're full of contradictions. Is it a Jewish state or is it a democracy? Yet they walk around and tell the world they created a rabbinate and they have chief rabbis, and they use the Star of David in the name Israel. And if you dare say anything against them, you are anti-Semitic, meaning you're against Jews. Of course, anti-Semitism is a false word because it means we're all Semites, Muslims, Arabs. But the point is they're using this terminology because they know that it is the tool that they will be able to silence, intimidate people, that they will not be able to open their mouths to speak up because they'll be labeled anti-Semitic, and they'll be able to point at Holocaust memorials and say, you see what the Nazis did, that ruthless killing of 6 million people, which, by the way, includes my grandparents, my relatives, the majority of my family, as all the Jewish people from the religious communities that are anti-Zionist. We all come from people, from these families, almost entirely, of people who were murdered by the Nazis. So when they look at this, they use this concept because they knew it is a perfect tool to silence anybody who will speak up against it. And on the contrary, they'll be able to point to the Bible and get evangelistic Christians and people who will stand up and say, yes, the children of Israel should have the land. And why are people opposing them? It's because they hate Jews. So therefore, they're not moral. And they dehumanize them to the point that they're like cockroaches, that they're able to stand there and sleep at night after watching them being murdered day in and day out. And the children are just small cockroaches. That is what we're witnessing today. This is unacceptable. It's beyond words, and we're not. I mean, I'm leaving. There's so many other people I've talked about, like Dr. Habash. We send his condolences, 27 members, as an example of every single who lost not only a human being but a body part, who lost anything in all the people. We try to send our condolences, but we are embarrassed to use that word condolences when we are watching an ongoing slaughter. But we have to know that it's critical to have the Jewish voice, to have the rabbinical authorities speak up, because we have to counter their point from where they are trying to get legitimacy, and they are unfortunately getting legitimacy. They're using the concept of a difference of religion that is vile, that is repulsive and false, because it was this community that are mostly Muslims in Gaza, and the mostly Muslims in Palestine were the ones who took in the Jewish people. The Ottoman Empire were the ones who took in the Jewish people. The Muslim countries as a whole took in the Jewish people through the time of Crusades, the Inquisition, throughout our history, when we were being burnt and murdered because we did not convert to Christianity. It was by the Crusades and Inquisitions. This is a fact of history. You can go through the European countries and see it. This is a fact. It was the Muslim countries who took us in. So how dare they claim that it is a difference of religion that's causing this hate, supposedly, and that the people do not want to accept Jews in Palestine. It's not because they're taking over and they've destroyed over 500 villages and they've taken the land, the rights away from the people of Palestine. It's because they hate Jews. There's nothing more repulsive. And us as Jews, we are hurting and crying with this. There are Jewish people living today in Palestine, in Al-Quds, in Jerusalem. We are hurting. The boys and the girls, the parents, the old rabbis, the young children, we know it and we hurt. We are humiliated, we are hurting and crying, and we are trying to raise our voices. As we always, people who know me know that we go around day in and day out showing pictures of the people that are being beaten, severely beaten, arrested, murdered by the Zionists because they have refused to accept the authority of this illegitimate Zionist state of Israel, the occupation, this ungodly occupation that's using the name Israel, Judaism, using the Star of David to occupy. And we refuse to accept that. So they are beaten, they are arrested, they are killed. They refuse to serve in the armies. And this is critical, that when we get together and we attempt to speak up, and attempt that we are stubbornly not going to be silent until, even though it seems futile, it seems that it gets worse from day to day. But we are not silent. And that is what's proper. But we have to always take along that message that the underlying cause of the state of Israel's point of claiming legitimacy and their reason for occupying is because they are a religion that the land belongs to them. This is patently false, evil, it's satanic. So that is why we are here. And although we've done this literally thousands of times, and not only since Gaza was attacked. We're doing this for you should know, over 100 years, 75 years of the existence of the state.
Recording in
and
progress.
Prior to that, we've been doing this. The rabbis, we have books, compilations of how in Europe, when the Zionists started raising its ugly head, the rabbis stood up and said, this is heresy, pure heresy, because it's not Judaism. Creating a state is forbidden for Jews. And when they picked Palestine, it's not only forbidden for Jews, it would be forbidden in an uninhabited land to create a Jewish state, a so-called Jewish state, because it's not Jewish. But by doing that, by occupying, by killing and stealing, and from who are you stealing from? From the people who are required to show gratitude. That's what it means to emulate God. God tells us to do kindness, and to do kindness especially to show gratitude when somebody even did a small favor for you. People who saved our lives, who took us in, and in these people's backyards, in their living room, in their dining room, you're taking away their homes from these people who have shown such kindness. So the rabbis have been standing up for over 100 years, and we've been assassinated. In 1924, I always mention the first famous martyr was maybe the first famous martyr was a Dr. Dahan, who said, I'm going to go to British Parliament when it was under the British mandate. He said, I'm going to tell the world, I'm going to demand from Britain that they should have a second look at what they're doing, because the Palestinian Jewish community is opposed to the occupation. They're opposed to creation of the state, and they assassinated him in the streets. And this is a person who they proudly assassinated, the Haganah, which is today what they call IDF, which is not a defense force, of course. It's just one of the many ways that they psychologically use to occupy by calling themselves defense force. It's not defense. It's offense, and it's offensive. It's unbelievably offensive. It's ungodly. So that is why we are here. We have a very important message, another message, that maybe people who say, I've demonstrated 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Why do I have to keep on demonstrating? It's because there's a few issues here that's so critical to know. One day, this will end, inshallah today. But when this will end, people will look back and say, did I do enough? Did I do enough? Every day that we were silent was more death. And maybe if I would have stood up another day. Look what happened with the apartheid. Apartheid went on and would be standing today if it would be up to the leaders, the political leaders. And I apologize, I'm not one sold any political leader. There are very good political leaders. But the political leadership gave them legitimacy in the United Nations, the apartheid. And there was so many people that kept on standing up and kept on letting themselves be arrested and even killed. And these people eventually put that pressure on the politicians, that today apartheid is looked at as racism, what it is. What was black and white, they flipped it over on its head. Today everybody knows black is black and white is white. And they know the apartheid is evil. Nobody could get up today and say, I will create an apartheid. They will not call them His Excellency of South Africa. I'm not talking about today's South Africa. Because why? Because it's an evil if you will make such a concept. That is what we're facing today. This will end. This worse than apartheid, this satanic murder of the people in Palestine will end. And people will ask, did I do enough? Was I silent? Or maybe if I would have stood up one more day, it would have done the move to stop it. On top of that, these were rabbis who said that one of the prophets suffered a lot of sicknesses, and he suffered terribly. And one of the rabbis said, why did it come to this great saint that he should suffer? And the rabbi said, because he was in a position by a very great king who did terrible atrocities to people, and he knew that he couldn't accomplish anything. So he was silent. He didn't say anything at that time. If he would have stood up and yelled, he knew he couldn't do anything with yelling. But what happened today, he's suffering. Why? Because the rabbi said, if it hurts, you cry. When it hurts, you scream. He knew he couldn't accomplish, but he should have been screaming. For the people that are silent because they say it's futile, we don't see what we're accomplishing, it's not true. But you have to yell because you cannot be silent. God forbid that mother of that baby, when she sees her dead baby, we all pouring, our tears are as rivers falling from our eyes. The people are watching this. Other people are saying, what could I do? Cry, scream, stand up. Ultimately, we are believers in God. So we know that it's in God's hand. We don't understand his way. We know that he's compassionate and all good. We don't understand the tsunami. We don't understand whatever happens. And ultimately, he will bring an end to this because this is evil. The state of Israel will end because it is forbidden to kill, to steal, to occupy, to have this state. It will end in its entirety. We pray to God with his compassion that he should bring a speedy and peaceful and total end of this occupation of the Zionist state of Israel. Yes, I'm politically incorrect. Yes, an end to the Zionist state of Israel. God should help speedily and peacefully with a free Palestine, so we can live together as we've had for these so many hundreds of years in peace. Jews and Muslims with our distinctly different religion, with our distinctly different belief in the end of time. We live together. It's not an impediment to peace, and it's not anti-Semitic to stand up and speak against this evil. That seed that they've planted, that they've used to create this satanic state, is not their seed, it's our seed. It's Judaism, which is to serve God. So let us not be silent, let us speak up, and remember constantly, say, clarify, this is not a war of religions, it's not Judaism, it's Zionism and a political Zionist state of Israel. That is what you have to be careful. You shouldn't be pulled into that trap of saying the Jews or the Jewish state. Clarify. It's not anti-Semitic to speak up because it's not a Jewish state. It's a Zionist state, a movement that started a little over 100 years ago. And God should help, that with God's compassion, we have to do, but that we should merit to see today a celebration for a free Palestine where the people and God should give them the hearts, and that they should be able to continue living even though they've lost so many of their relatives, that they've suffered so much, that they should be able to be given back a fresh life. We should be able to serve God. And I have to thank the European Muslim Forum, again, Dr. Habash. God should again give him the strength to live through all with so much suffering, and we should have again free Palestine soon in our days. Thank you.
We thank you very much, dear Rabbi. It is very precious, your words, very, very precious. But time is squeezing me, so